dragon of Babylon, through whom the fury of God burned against my people. Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, has devoured me. He has crushed me. He has made me an empty vessel. He has swallowed me up like a dragon. The tears of my people flowed like a river, but they could not quench the fires that consumed our land. Into the wilderness we were led, defeated and destroyed. The God we'd forsaken, we thought he'd forsaken us. But even in our darkest moment, God would not leave or forsake his people. Once more, he made us a promise. I will not look on you in anger, for I am merciful. I will not be angry forever. Only acknowledge your guilt that you rebelled against the Lord your God. I will take you, one from a city and two from a family, and I will bring you to Zion. For 70 years, the people of God lived in Babylon. Over time, Babylon began to wither, and a great lion rose from the east, Cyrus, the king of Persia. His armies consumed the world. He set his gaze on the remains of the great dragon's lair, Babylon. There, Cyrus led a cunning attack, and the kingdom fell. Cyrus was a great and good king and did not believe in keeping men as slaves. During the first year of his reign, he issued a decree that freed the Jews. God stirred the hearts of his most devoted people to journey back to Jerusalem and rebuild his temple. And let each survivor, in whatever place he sojourns, be assisted by the men of his place with silver and gold, with goods, with beasts, besides free will offerings for the house of God that is in Jerusalem. Cyrus went the way of all men. Behold, 3 more kings shall arise in Persia, and a 4th shall be far richer than all of them. And when he has become strong through his riches, he shall stir up all against the kingdom of Greece. Behold, Ahasuerus, Xerxes the Great. Under Xerxes, the empire prospered, and so did the Jews, who did not return to Jerusalem. Among these Jews was a family of the tribe of Benjamin. They gathered all they could scrape together and headed out from Babylon for the richest city the world had ever known, the Persian capital of Susa. During the journey, both the mother and father died, leaving a baby girl to Mordecai. Little did my cousin know that I would grow to be a woman the world would never forget.
So Esther was a part of God's plan for saving the Jewish nation, right? And that even when she was born, God had a purpose for Esther's life. Esther was a woman who wasn't afraid because she knew that God was with her. And King Xerxes ordered for every Jew to be killed in all of the land. And it was up to his new wife, Esther, to stop him. Esther had to be brave and had to go out of her comfort zone to do something courageous. Esther was a Jew herself, and she could not allow herself to see the Jewish nation fall. And it was all because of this evil man on his evil pursuit. Esther had to go into the unknown. She had to go to King Xerxes, which was something that she could have died from doing. Esther put her life on the line for God's people. Esther wasn't afraid of walking into the unknown, and it required her taking a risk. In our lives, there are going to be surprises. There are going to be things that come up. Sometimes these are good situations, and sometimes these are really hard situations. But when we put ourselves into hard situations, it becomes unknown territory, and it becomes scary. I think God calls us to have this same sort of faith that Esther had, which was to be risky, to have this risky sort of faith. Walking into unknown territory will in fact allow us to trust God more. That sometimes it is good for us to not know what his plan is for us. It is good for us to walk into these places and to be scared. And when it comes to having risky faith, it requires having this passionate pursuit of life in Jesus, which when we're in these sort of unknown territories that we expect God to move in. When we pursue Jesus, we are walking into the unknown. That Jesus doesn't call us to have these safe, normal, easy lives. That our life with Jesus would be us trusting him and putting ourselves in situations that we're scared and that we have to trust him. Esther was brought to a crisis point where she must decide whether or not to step up or to be scared. But she chose to step up. She chose to walk into the unknown because she knew that God was going to show up. She expected him to come. She expected him to do something. Most of you already know this, but for those of you who don't, this Sunday is actually going to be my last Sunday here at LBF. God has called Mariah and I, my wife and I, to move back up north to where I grew up in the Bay Area, back to San Jose. And we are going into some unknown territory, that we are scared, we're fearful. And I wanted to share a little bit of what's going on in my life because I feel like I kind of relate with Esther. And I feel like it explains perfectly what happened in the story of Esther. So let me just share kind of how important it is to listen to God's voice and to take a risk. As you know, I am, the junior high director here at LBF, and I absolutely love my job here. Really have. But this has only been my part-time job. My other job is working at Disneyland, making balloon animals, doing all that. And that's been really fun as well. But for me personally, I work 7 days a week, pretty much 7 days a week. Some weeks are not as much, but most weeks I work 7 days a week. Now imagine you guys going to school 7 days a week. It would be awful. It would be terrible, right? So I work 7 days a week, and I am honestly killing myself. Mariah and I are just exhausted. She works a ton as well, and we're just killing ourselves. It's just not working. And the last couple months, we began to pray, God, would you do something, Lord, that we know that we can't keep running this hard anymore. And we prayed for a job interview for Mariah to come in the area in Southern California, and just prayed and prayed and prayed, and nothing would show up. And as we were praying, I had a good friend and a mentor of mine approach me. Her name is Bree, and Bree is this awesome lady and someone that I look up to and have looked up to for a long time. And she approached me, she called me, she said, hey, Carlo, I want you to possibly look into this job working for me up here in San Jose, back home, working for Young Life. It's a great organization, parachurch organization, really, really awesome. And she's like, hey, I want you to consider this. And she's like, just pray about it. And I totally blew her off. I was like, no, yeah, okay, that's great, that's cute. I'll pray about it. And I didn't pray about it. I was just like, no, I'm comfortable at LBF. I like what I'm doing. But at the same time, praying that God would do something. A couple months go by, and I run into her at a wedding, one of my good friends' weddings up north. And she's like, Carlo, so what's the deal? Have you been praying? And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, no, I have not been praying. She's like, Carlo, will you just at least pray about this? And I said, okay, pray about it. So I prayed about it. And as Mariah and I began to pray, we felt like God was saying, Carlo, Mariah, I want you guys to check this out. Don't just dismiss it. At least investigate it a little. So we did. So we went up north. We went through the interview process, and they offered me the job. I said, okay, full time. That's nice. Okay. And during the same time, Mariah, who's been applying for jobs relentlessly down here because she's a server at Disneyland, and she doesn't want to do that anymore, and it's just crazy hours, and it's just not worth it, and it's super demanding. We don't want to do that anymore. Applying for a million jobs down here, doesn't hear back from anything. She applies for one job up north in San Jose, and it's working at a Christian high school like Western or Upland Christian, doing admissions, and she had an interview, and they loved her, and they offered her the job on the spot, full-time, everything. And we're like, wow, that stuff just doesn't sort of happen, and we really felt like God was doing something, and we didn't really like it at first. We're like, well, we're comfortable where we are. We can get by. We like living in Southern California. We have jobs. We have, we can afford to have, to live. And, but we kind of looked at each other and just said, wow. And after praying and after really seeking out what God wanted for us, and this took us a couple months to get through, we really felt like God was saying, Carlo and Mariah, I want you to come home. I want you to come home and be with family as you begin your family. Because we felt like that's where our future was leading us. That's where we felt like God was leading us. And it was really, really hard. It was really, really hard. And Mariah's family lives there, like a couple hours away. My family lives there. And we just feel so burned out, and that we can't run at this pace anymore. And God's saying, here it is. But it's not going to be easy. Like, we are scared out of our minds. We don't know where we're going to live. We're going to be living with my parents until we find a place. And if you don't know, the Bay Area is very expensive, super, super expensive to live there. It's like living in New York City. And we're like, can we even afford this? Is this even doable? And we felt like we are walking into unknown territory, that we are scared, that we don't know what's exactly going to happen, but we are walking into unknown territory. And we had this tough dilemma, and it was super hard, but we felt like in the end, this is what God wants us to do. For me, it's really hard to walk away from something great, to walk away from you guys, from this church, and from this team, and with all the pastors and leaders here at this church. It is really, really hard to do that. But we really felt like God was saying, just as much as he was saying to Esther, I want you to walk into unknown territory. I want you to trust me. And we believe, and Esther believed as well, is that, okay, if God's calling me to go into unknown territory, then I'm going to believe and I'm going to expect him to move in mighty ways. And I believe that's how Jesus wants us to live our lives, is us trusting him in every step of this process, of your lives, of everything. He's saying, I want you to trust me. I want to tell you that it's going to be okay. And imagine Esther risking her lives to save others, that she could have died just for approaching the king. And as you know, as the story goes on, she ends up being the person who actually saved the Jewish nation. But she risked her life to save the lives of others. She walked into a scary, unknown, uncomfortable situation. And even though it was scary, she knew that God was going to show up. She knew that he was going to move in some mighty ways. And it's because she passionately pursued Jesus. And when you passionately pursue Jesus with all of your heart, you can expect him to move. You can expect him to do something. And that's what I want to leave you guys here this morning with, is that as I leave, and as Jeff takes over this group, and as this next person comes in, I want you guys to know that if you continue to pursue Jesus, expect him to do mighty things. that God is doing some great things in Mariah and I's life. And yes, this is hard and this is difficult, but expect him to move in this group. Expect him to move with Jeff and with the leaders and with this next person that comes in. Expect God to do something great. Because I know and I trust everybody in this group, and I trust Jeff, that you guys are pursuing Jesus with all of your hearts and with all of your souls, and I know that God is going to do something great. And I believe that for your lives. I want you guys to live this way. And I think that this is the core of being a Christian. This is the core of what we believe in, is putting our trust in Jesus and walking into unknown situations. Even for some of you in here, walking into this youth group is maybe unknown territory. That this is sometimes weird and this is uncomfortable and it doesn't feel natural. I get that. I get that for some of you guys. But just as Esther demonstrated, she trusted in God. She pursued him, and she believed that he was going to move. And I want you guys to believe that he is going to move in your lives, because that is the same God that you believe in. That is the same God that you are worshiping up here on stage. And that is the same God that I am putting everything on the line for my wife and I, to move up north. And that just because we have jobs doesn't mean we have all the answers. And it was really hard to make that decision. And we are very bummed, but also very excited and very scared all at the same time. And I believe that same truth for you guys. As you go into this next season of being a part of this group, expect God to move. Not just in this group, but in your life as well. And I want to leave you guys just with this last verse. It's Luke 10:27. It says, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength." Love God and follow him and trust him when he takes you to places where it's the unknown. Expect God to move when you passionately pursue him. Expect God to move. Guys, I'm going to miss you guys so much. And that this has been so hard. And I don't want you to feel like I'm just ditching you guys, or it's like, hey, peace out, there's another better opportunity. It's like, no, this is a really, really hard decision. It's a decision that I didn't even want to make. But God was moving in my life, and I believe that God is moving in your guys' lives, and that we are called to sometimes make hard decisions and to go into unknown and scary places. But expect God to move. Expect God to do something and trust him with all of your heart. So guys, let's pray. Dear Lord, I thank you so much for the opportunity to walk along some of these amazing students, Lord. Lord God, I pray that just for this next season, Lord, that you would just be with these students, God. Would you show up, God, as they passionately pursue you, Lord? God, would you move in these students' lives in ways that we never even expected? God, I pray that we would have the same faith as Esther, that we would take a leap of faith and trust you. And as we go into unknown and scary territories in our lives, God, would we have the peace of knowing that you are there, God, that you are guiding us and that you are walking with us. And Lord God, that we are not alone. God, we thank you so much for your love and for your grace. And God, I just pray over these students right now, God, that they would have hearts that are on fire for you, and that they would pursue you with all of who they are for the rest of their lives, God. So God, we thank you. We thank you for this morning. We pray these things in you. Amen.